So let's move on now to the low risk group of patients. We've sort of split our treatment algorithms now with initially with the APT trial for the weekly paclitaxel trastuzumab for low risk, which I think has been a great advance for our patients and now is being confirmed with longer follow-up. Joyce, you want to talk about now the randomized trial that takes us to the next level of information?
Yeah, that was very interesting. It was the ATEMPT trial, the first data that came out from the ATEMPT trial, which was in patients with T1 and 0 HER2 positive breast cancer who were randomized 3-to-1, 500 patients, I believe it was, randomized 3-to-1 to TDM1 for a year versus the weekly paclitaxel times 12 with trastuzumab, followed by finishing the year of trastuzumab, which Sarah Tillany had published an update, I believe it was at 7 years, showing really spectacular results. I mean, low single digits, little numbers of distant recurrences, very, very good. And so the results on both arms were very good. It was not really to be compared. It was more of just a reference so there wouldn't be bias, for one arm versus the other. But the primary endpoint was clinically related toxicities, wanting to decrease it by at least 40% with the TDM1, which wasn't met. It was less. However, it was less with the TDM1.
It was actually, in the final analysis, this particular endpoint of clinically relevant toxicities was actually was identical, 46% in both arms. But I think one point to bring out is that the toxicity profile of the drugs are different, as we all know. So there was more, obviously more alopecia and neuropathy and neutropenia with TH, and there was more LFT abnormalities, thrombocytopenia, and early discontinuation before the 1 year with the TDM1 arm.
Yeah, 17%, right, discontinued.
Yeah.
And then
but it was
for
interesting, they all stopped in the last 6 months. And having put lots of patients in that trial, there's just a fatigue with getting it. It's not trastuzumab. You have a little more side effects, but they were doing fine up till then, which was fascinating. And actually, there was a study of PROs where at the beginning, so everybody got randomized, right? And then they got their first PRO set of documents. And the people who were randomized to TDM1 did much better in terms of PROs before they'd been treated.
Right, because they know they're not losing their hair. So,
but neuropathy was less.
See,
Grade 3 neuropathy,
I think that's
7%
important.
versus 2%, which 7% with TH, 2% with
that's still in the single
TDM1.
digits. That's not.
But actually,
Right,
it's
but-
interesting. They looked at it at 18 months, and it's 100 patients versus 300, and so that still makes me a little worried because there's so much pharmacogenomics and individual sensitivity to taxanes in terms of neuropathy. But given the fact that we don't identify it, we have a subgroup of patients who really get long-term neuropathy from minimal exposure to taxanes. At 18 months, there was less in the TDM1 arm. So it is a consideration for people. I mean, if we could do a shorter course, 6 months, to somebody who's a violinist or, I mean, there's a lot of things where we really can destroy somebody's life by giving them that neuropathy.
So the other question I have is, I think 60%, 70% of the patients in ATEMPT were ER positive, triple positive, correct? Mm-hmm. So how many of those patients were truly luminal A? And in true dose escalation, need just hormonal therapy?
Right. Well,
that's really the question that needs to be asked.
And we should be very clear that both the design of APT and ATEMPT doesn't tell you that
you need to treat.
You need any of the, particularly for very small ER positive, HER2 positive cancers, you probably don't need anything else besides hormonal therapy. But I think the take-home message here was that in patients treated with TDM1, excellent outcomes.
97.5%.
Right. And
3 year disease free.
You can't get much better than that. 2 recurrences out of 375 patients. But it was not dramatically better tolerated than TH. So I think it's hard to justify saying TDM1 should be the new standard for stage 1 HER2 positive breast cancers based on these data. However, for patients in whom the toxicities of TH are a real issue, alopecia in some patients is a problem if they can't,
and scalp cooling.
Right, and neuropathy. I mean, there's a lot of vocations that neuropathy, as you said, would be a real game changer. So I think for those patients, I think TDM1, these data say that those patients, this is a potential option.